Development and Enterprise Executive Director Anne Bernstein claiming today that South Africa cannot afford a basic income grant. She says that this might be a reckless, losing gamble with history. She was speaking during the release of the CDE's report called Poverty and a Basic Income Grant. She joins us now. And good evening to you and thank you for your time. You've asked 5 specific questions around a basic income grant. One of the most important, they're all important, but one of the very important questions is, can we afford a basic income grant? How do you answer that question?
Well, good evening, Stephen. I think when you look at the poverty that we see around us, which is devastating, the country's drowning in poverty and probably over 60% of the population. Everybody wants to do something, but we are heavily constrained. We can already not afford what we spend. The country is in deep debt and we are, I think, in the midst of what you might call fiscal crisis. We're already cutting back the budgets for basic education, for policing, to the provinces, all sorts of things where South Africa's budget over the last 2-3 years has been cutting back and is projected to do even more in the next 3 years. So we're in a very difficult situation. Now, the basic income grant could cost, depending on who would get it and how much money they would get, and their different proposals. This would cost us between 200 and 300 billion rand every year. And you have to ask where this would come from. So if you raise it from taxes, you're going to affect our debt ratio, and you're going to affect the fiscal situation, and you are going to have an impact on the people who have to pay tax. And this will, in our view, all of this will reduce the prospects for growth and more employment. So we are saying that a big is like a mirage. We'd all like to give poorer people some money, but we can't afford it. We have dug ourselves into a very deep hole in South Africa. We're in deep crisis. And to think that we can raise hundreds of billions of rands without any structural changes is just going to set the country on an even worse path, with even fewer jobs for all those people who don't have employment.
The real aim of a basic income grant is to improve the incomes of people. So it's to get more money into the pockets of more people, to allow them to buy more and better food and to provide better for their children. In your view, are there better ways to do that than a basic income grant?
Well, that's the $4 million question, if I can put it that way. Let's step back one. Firstly, South Africa is already a society that redistributes a lot of money. We have a redistributive budget, and we are, compared to almost every country in the developing world, we spend 3 times more on cash transfers to people than anyone else. And there's no doubt that cash transfers are pretty well targeted. But we redistribute things in all sorts of other ways, whether it's education or healthcare or housing or a whole range of things. And in general, we spend a lot of money, but we get little value. So one issue is we should be making sure that the over 1 trillion rand, 52% of government spending, which we use for redistributive activities, is much better spent. We get much more bang for our buck. So that's one issue that's really important. The other is the only way to deal with poverty is to get growth going. There is no magic here. We're in such a deep hole, appalling choices over the last decade, terrible governance. We have to get fast and labor-intensive growth going, and we have to ensure that the money we spend on redistribution to help poorer South Africans actually reaches them. A lot of this money, besides not getting value for it, a lot of this money does not go to poor people. If you think of procurement or you think of transformation, this goes to better off people. So we have to rethink our whole approach And we've got to get faster growth and take the tough decisions that are required for faster and more labor-intensive growth.
Anne Bernstein, thank you very much indeed, Executive Director.